The Magic of Ig, an audio children's story or fable for grown-ups, written and performed by Jan Little. Chapter 1.
The Magic of Ig. Once upon a time, not a faraway time, but actually a time quite recent, there was a girl called Ig. Funny name that, isn't it? Short for Ignatiana, and understandably perhaps Ig hated it. What on earth possessed her parents to call her Ignatiana, she just didn't know. Not only was it unpronounceable, but it came from a boy's name, Ignatius. Her twin brothers couldn't say it. They could only say Ig, and Ig seemed better than the full name. Children at school seemed to think Ig was cool, and they rarely teased her about it. So Ig she was. Things had changed, though, since her little brothers had been born. They were cute and funny and noisy. They could shout and scream and cry, and they always seemed to be needing something. Nappy changing or bottle feeding, and just when Ig wanted to ask her parents a question. Not now, dear. In a minute. But the minute never came. Ig knew her brothers needed looking after, but even when the boys were asleep, her mum and dad were tired and too exhausted to play with her. Her parents were worried, you see. They hadn't expected 2 more mouths to feed, and money was short. So Ig stopped asking for treats and new things, and took to wandering in the park and woods nearby, because that didn't cost anything at all. And for some reason, Ig liked the trees in the wood. The tall, the small, the fat and the thin. They sheltered her from rain, and she loved the way their leaves trembled in the wind, and the way they left piles of leaves on the floor in autumn that you could scrunch under your feet. On this particular summer's day, Ig was wandering around the wood, looking at the wild garlic, when she suddenly spotted piles of dead leaves and twigs under a tree. Strange, thought Ig. It's quite a mound. And the leaves, they look all freshly fallen, although it's summer now. She felt she had to take a closer look. She bent down and grabbed a handful of leaves in both hands together. "Ah! That hurts!" said a voice. Ig was so surprised, she dropped the leaves immediately. "Ah! That's even worse!" said the voice. "What are you trying to do, dropping an injured man?" Ig just stood there in astonishment. "Don't just stand there," said the voice. "Get these leaves off me before I get smothered to death." Ig gently brushed the leaves away, and then put her hand to her mouth in surprise. For there, on the woodland floor, was a stick man. 2 legs made out of sticks. 2 arms made out of sticks. His body was made out of 1 stick, and his head, well, that was like the top of a matchstick. "Phew! That's better," said the little man. "And where have you been? I've been calling you for ages." I never heard you. Sorry," replied Ig. She couldn't believe she was talking to a stick figure, as though it was the most normal thing on earth. But then, he was only 6 inches tall at the most, and he couldn't do her much harm. Could he? "Never heard me? When I'm calling out for help with all my strength?" Never heard me? You couldn't have been listening from the right place. Ig could feel herself getting a little annoyed with the stickman's grumpiness. Right place? What are you on about? You listen with your ears, don't you? The stickman shook his head. Oh dear, oh dear. You are going to be a difficult one, I can see. Difficult? It's you who's being difficult. I just went to pick up some leaves, that's all. And then you made a noise like you were poorly and then Ig's kind nature won over her frustration, and she gently asked, "Oh, are you hurt?" Thank you. Remembered someone other than yourself now, have you? Well, yes, as it happens, I am hurt. I've hurt my leg. See? It's dangling down at a very funny angle. It's all bent. Gosh, that does look bad, said Ig, as she looked upon one twigged leg, all bent backwards from the stickman's knee. I think I'd better get the doctor. The thought did cross Ig's mind that maybe her dad would be a better choice, as she wasn't sure that doctors dealt with legs made out of sticks. But the stickman shouted, "Doctor? I don't need a doctor. You mend it." Me? I'm not a doctor. Stickman gave one of his huffs again. How old are you? 9? 10? And you don't know how to mend a leg? No, I don't, and neither do my mum and dad, and they're really old, at least 30, so age has got nothing to do with it. Aye, well, the stickman snuffled. The older you get, the worse it is for forgetting you got magic fingers. Ig wondered if the poor stickman had hurt his head as well as his leg. He was talking such nonsense. There's no such thing as magic. It's all tricks, my dad says. Yes, well, that's another thing grown-ups forget. Now, just put your hand on my knee there. Not there. There. Yes, that's right. Now, hold it there. Ah! Ig jumped back and screamed as suddenly sparks and light set off from her hand like fireworks. All different colours were flying from her fingers, like sparklers with zigzag lights that flashed like lightning. And as soon as she drew back, the fireworks stopped. Cut the dramatics, please. If you're going to be a wizard, you better get used to it. In fact, the more you practice, the more you'll be able to do it without all those visual effects. Wizard? What was that? I'm no wizard. Don't ask questions in awkward situations. Just do it again. That's right. Now blow on it. Oh, not like that. Gently and slowly. Let the breath come from your tummy and out of your mouth. There. Mended. Strong new leg. You might have the beginnings of a wizard after all. Ig looked at her fingers, and then at the stickman's leg, and then back again. The leg. It looked brand new. And she looked for the old bent one next to him, but there was no sign of it at all. And she felt not so much pleased as a little afraid of what had just happened. It wasn't normal. It wasn't usual. And she definitely wasn't a wizard. It will become quite normal if you let it, replied the stickman, as if he had read her thoughts. It's the sort of thing that wizards do all the time. How many times do I have to tell you? I am not a wizard. And anyway, I'm a girl, so I would be a witch. No, girls can be wizards too. But if you're not interested, then I'll be going. After I came all this way too. You called me, and I came. That's no way to treat people. I never called you. I never did. You're telling fibs, and I must be dreaming. I mean, you're not even here. Ig closed her eyes and pinched herself. But it did actually hurt. And when she opened her eyes, the stickman was still there. You did call me. I never did. You did. Did not. You did so. You were looking at the stars and wished you could do magic like Harry Potter. Although why Harry beats me, Hermione is much more sensible. Well, Hermione can be a bit stuck up. Right up your street then, I'd say. And the stickman laughed. Ig ignored the insult and thought back. Why, yes. 3 nights ago she had woken up in the middle of the night, gone to the window, and looked at the stars. She had been reading Harry Potter before she went to bed, and had wished she was as magical as he was. So, Stickman was right after all. She had called him. Everyone's magical if they but knew it, said Stickman. Now, hurry up. We haven't much time. Where's the slip-away tree in this wood? A slip-away tree? I've no idea what you're talking about. Well, the stickman stood up and put all his weight on his new leg. Not a bad job, he muttered. I thought you would know about slip-away trees, though. What do they teach you in school these days? Anyway, if you've never seen or climbed a slip-away tree, then you are in for a real adventure. Follow me. I'll find it. And Ig, still with the image of sparks flying from her fingertips, found herself both excited and a little afraid as she followed the stickman through the wood, wondering what on earth was about to happen next. The Magic of Ig, Chapter 2. The Slip-Away Tree. The stickman was surprisingly quick through the wood. Being only 6 inches tall, Ig expected his little legs to have to run to keep up with her. But no, on the contrary, Stickman didn't seem to walk. He appeared to take big leaps of several feet across the forest, hardly ever touching the ground. He literally flew over the forest floor, with Ig struggling to keep up. "Wait!" she shouted, as she was getting out of breath. "Wait? Can't wait. There's work to be done. Don't you go all Hermione on me." "It's Hermione, not Hermione. I keep telling you." "Well, Hermione suits you much better." "It does not." "Oh, wait!" "Too much time wasted waiting. We have to get to the slip-away tree before it closes for the day." "Closes? Trees don't close," she said, as the stickman was disappearing into the distance. "And for that matter, they don't open either!" she shouted after him. Stickman suddenly appeared right next to her. Look, I can't help you if you keep that head of yours shut so tight to possibilities. Unless you open it up a bit, you won't learn a thing. So, the first secret of being a wizard is to forget everything you think you know. Forget everything? Well, that's just stupid. What if I forget who I am? That would be an excellent start, because you can then be who you really are. Ig blinked. She didn't understand at all. So she tried again. Or if I forget where I live and I can't get home? Then you start living and find home is everywhere, retorted Stickman. Now, for goodness sake, let's move on. The tree's very close now. Ig shook her head. The Stickman talked in riddles she didn't understand, and there he was, leaping ahead again. He was rude, impatient, and not very kind. But somehow, somewhere, something inside her felt absolutely compelled to follow him. The Stickman, with Ig running behind, finally stopped at a big, broad sycamore tree. "This is it," said Stickman. "And we've just got here in the nick of time. Ta-da! Meet the slip-away tree." Ig looked at the tree. It had a huge, thick trunk, which ended up with lots of elephant-like feet sinking into the ground. It was high, with branches that swept down quite near to the floor for such a tall tree. It was a lovely specimen, but, well, it looked like lots of other trees that she had seen before, and it couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. "It's nice, but it looks quite ordinary," she said. "Ordinary? Ordinary?" exclaimed Stickman. "What sort of word is that? I tell you now, nothing, absolutely nothing is ordinary unless you make it so. On the contrary, everything in this world is quite extraordinary, if you only looked at it properly." "But I am looking at it." "But you're not seeing it." "I am. I can see a tree." "Well, don't." "What? What do you mean, don't?" "You're seeing an image. You think tree, and your head fills all the rest of the picture in with what you think you know about trees. I need you to forget what you know. Call it something else. A gumblegosh, for instance." Ig couldn't help laughing. Okay, this is a gumblegosh." And she started to giggle. "And I have never, ever seen one before." And as Ig looked at the newly named gumblegosh, she saw the elephant feet start to swell and stretch their toes. She looked at the leaves on the branches to see each branch had leaves from a different tree. There were oak leaves on one branch, ash on another, fir on a higher branch. It was amazing. She had never seen anything like this before. As she leaned in closer, she saw sparkling lights begin to appear on the leaves, and she gasped in awe as the fairy lights shone and danced their way along the branches. Wow! She leaned in even closer, when, suddenly, A weeping willow branch bent down in front of her and swept her right off her feet. "Ah!" she screamed. "Oh, there. Don't worry. I won't drop you," said the weeping willow branch. "But I must say, you are heavier than I thought for my slim little branches. Think I will have to pass you on to oak." A big thick branch swung round from the other side of the tree, grabbed Ig and took her right to the top of all the other branches and held her tight. "Are you ready now?" asked a voice, which seemed to be coming from the tree trunk. "I am closing soon, you know." Ready for what?" hesitated Ig. She daren't look down. I don't suppose this is a good time to say I'm scared of heights," she whispered.
"No, far too late. Don't you go all Hermione on me,"
said the familiar voice of Stickman as he leapt onto a branch beside her.
"Off we go!"
Ig clutched onto her oak branch as suddenly the tree Gumblegosh started to sway from side to side. For 1 minute she thought the tree was actually going to start walking through the wood. But no, the swaying increased, getting faster and faster, until she felt like she was on a spinning roundabout that couldn't be stopped. And then suddenly the Gumblegosh wasn't even there anymore, and she was just being catapulted through time and space into goodness knows where, and she was screaming and screaming, and then Stickman was next to her, trying to hold her hand with his little twiggy fingers.
"Breathe,"
he said.
"Calm down. Don't be frightened. Look, you're flying. You are actually flying."
Ig looked down. And it was true. She and the Stickman were flying, and not just over Earth. No, they were out in the big wide universe. It was dark, and there were stars and moons and planets, and she was flying in amongst them all. "Wow, I am flying," she thought. "How cool is that?" "I'm flying!" she shouted out to Stickman beside her. He nodded his matchstick head and smiled. Ig laughed, and together they flew in between the stars that formed a plough, and then up to the stars that formed Orion, and Ig loved it. She was flying, really flying, and it was beautiful, so beautiful. The light sparkled and twinkled against the night sky, and the dark was a velvet blanket of deep navy blue enveloping them as it slept. Then, just as they were sweeping over the northern star, Ig looked down, and she had a terrifying thought. "But I don't like heights." And as the thought gripped her, she began to fall. Falling through the atmosphere. Down and down she sank like a rock. So quick was the fall that she couldn't breathe, couldn't even scream, until she finally landed with a big thud on the ground.
"This planet is taken," said a deep voice. "Get your breath back and then leave, or I'll have to push you off, and you won't want that, will you? Better to go now, and of your own accord, before things get difficult. You shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be here at all." Ig was dazed by her fall,
couldn't see who or what was talking. But she heard the message. She heard it loud and clear. Wherever she had landed, she wasn't welcome. She wasn't welcome at all. The Magic of Ig, Chapter 3, The Planet. "Oh, I'm so sorry," apologised Ig. I really am. I didn't have a choice, you know. I fell." She checked herself for bruises, but found herself remarkably uninjured.
I don't need the who or the why. Just do as I say, and go. Depart from my presence henceforth,
commanded the voice. "But I don't know how to leave," replied Ig. "I would if I could, but I'm all alone. I don't know where I am, or where I could go, or how to get back to my mum and dad, and—" Ig could feel the tears beginning to well up. "And I'm up in the sky, and I'm afraid of heights, and I wish I'd never heard of Harry Potter and being magic." And the tears spilt out of her eyes and began to run down her face, and then she began to sob.
Oh, I say, careful, you're spoiling my brightness with all those water droplets.
But Ig, once she'd started, couldn't stop, and the tears flowed, forming little streams on the ground.
Look, I really can't have this. I know you're upset, but I will have to throw you off if you carry on.
You wouldn't be so cruel."
I'm sorry, but my job in the universe is to shine, and you are drowning me, and I just can't have it.
With that, the planet suddenly gave a heave, and poor Ig rolled to its side. No, don't!" she screamed.
I have to get rid of the water. Must get rid of the water. You don't understand. I have to.
And the planet heaved again, turning over. "Ah!" screamed Ig, desperately trying to hang on. But as the planet turned, she rolled off, seemingly into the darkness below. But then, at the very last moment, her hand found a solid rock, and there she was, hanging on to the edge of the planet with one hand, whilst her legs and the rest of her body just hung there in space. "Help! Help!" she shouted. "I can't hold on much longer. I promise I won't cry and spoil your shine. Please!" Even as she spoke, she could feel her fingers uncurling from the rock. "Please! Ah!" she screamed again as the planet suddenly tilted backwards and she found herself back on its surface. She was trembling, frightened, but she knew she couldn't. She must not cry. Please don't do that again," she begged. "Please."
I had to get rid of the water, and the mission was accomplished, declared the planet. It's a law of the planets, you know. Never ever let anyone or anything take away your shine. I will still need a polish to bring me up to standard.
"Well, I would help if I could, but I don't have a duster or mop or polish, and I'm not learning to be a wizard anymore, so I can't make yours shine brighter without them. But please, please, don't throw me off."
Did you say wizard?
Yes, but I'm not one.
Well, why didn't you say before? You must be one of Stickman's students. He's always losing them. I'll call him now.
Ig was dazed at this sudden change in the planet's attitude. 1 minute it was threatening to throw her off, and the next it was offering to help. Thank you, but I'm not sure I want to see him. Do you know, he actually got me into this mess in the first place." But even as she spoke, something flitted across in front of her. That size, that shape, could only be Stickman.
"Charming, I'm sure," he snorted. "A right little Hermione you're turning out to be."
"My name's Ig."
"It's Ignatiana."
"Actually," Stickman replied, and he called out,
"Thank you for calling me Venus. I found her a lot quicker with your help."
"Venus?"
"Yes, Venus. You landed on the second brightest object in the night sky in the Earth's solar system, the moon being the brightest thing, of course."
"Ooh, no wonder you were worried about me damping down your brightness," said Ig into thin air. "But what a lovely name, Venus."
Yes, I was named after the Roman goddess of love and beauty.
"Goddess? But that's a woman."
Yes, of course.
"Well, I hope you don't mind me saying that you have a very deep voice for a woman."
Oh, I have many voices, depending on the day. Don't you like it? I can change it. I can change it on the app on my smartphone if you want.
"You have a smartphone?"
Oh, yes. Aren't they wonderful? Of course, most of the time I don't need a voice, only when intruders like you turn up. But I do love the music on my phone to dance to.
"You dance?"
Of course, everyone knows that. I dance with the earth around the sun. I tease Earth, saying I am the fittest, but actually my circles are smaller, and we make the most beautiful 5-sided flower shapes as we go. We used to dance to the music of the spheres, but since my smartphone, we're trying all sorts of music."
"Oh, lovely," responded Ig, her falling now a distant memory as she took in this most strange information.
"Remember, forget everything you think you know and open your mind to possibilities,"
Stickman whispered in her ear.
"And don't ask Venus any more questions, either we'll be here all day. Now, you made a serious mistake when we were flying. You remembered you used to be afraid of heights, and you doubted, became fearful, and fell. As soon as you believed the thought, you dropped down."
"But I am afraid of heights."
"No, that was in the past. When you were flying with me, were you frightened? Or were you actually enjoying it?"
Well, I was frightened at first, but then
I was enjoying it.
So, don't bring old problems into the world of infinite possibilities.
Oh, so I would still be flying if I had said I used to be afraid of heights.
Yes, well done. Even if your thought says, I am afraid of heights, you correct it immediately and you put it in the past with, I used to be.
Oh, I didn't know that. Ig felt stupid. I guess you're right. I'm not really wizard material after all. Her lip quivered, and she visibly shrank, becoming so small in stature she looked almost like a mouse.
There you go, all Hermione again. You made a mistake, but you have learnt now, so let it go.
Yes, yes, shouted Venus. Sometimes I sing as we dance. Let it go, let it go. Or, I know what you want, what you really, really want. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want.
Definitely time to go, said Stickman. Ready? Just jump with me, because Wizard Ignatiana, you can fly.
And Ig took a leap into the air, not knowing where she was going, but trusting, because she used to be afraid of heights, but now, in this new moment, she could fly.
The Magic of Ig, Chapter 4. Old Stories. Ig flew through the air really confidently with Stickman by her side. "Where are we going?" she asked.
Here, there, everywhere, and nowhere,
replied Stickman.
We just go with the flow, fly with the air currents, always aware, always ready, and always open to new experiences.
Ig translated this as, "He doesn't have a clue," but she wasn't going to let him off so easily. "So, in other words, you don't know."
No, isn't it wonderful?
Ig shrugged her shoulders. Personally, she liked to think she was going somewhere. But stickmen and wizards seemed to live in a totally different world. Ig hadn't eaten since she left the wood. And how long ago was that, she wondered? Was it hours or days, months or minutes? Time felt very different when you were with Stickman out in the universe.
No McDonald's out here,
said Stickman, reading her thoughts again. It doesn't matter anyway. It's funny, but I'm not hungry. At home, I'm always hungry. She barely finished the sentence before a voice out of nowhere shouted, "Hungry, hungry, we're always hungry." And there, to the left-hand side of her, were three of the strangest flying creatures she had ever seen. The first had the body of a man, but the head and tail of a bull with huge, ginormous pointed horns. The second had the upper body and head of a man, but the lower body of a horse, which kept rearing up in front of them. And the third was a giant of a man, but with only one large eye in the centre of his head, which was swivelling around, taking everything in. "Ah, Minotaur, Centaur, and Cyclops," muttered Stickman. "I wondered when they would show up." The fact that they were the most awesome and intimidating trio she had ever seen was not what was frightening Ig the most. No, the horns, the eye, and the horse body were not half as scary as the huge axe that each one carried in their hands, or in Centaur's case, attached to his mane on his neck. "Hide behind me," instructed Stickman, thrusting out his little twiggy arm to protect her. "Oh, that is really going to work, isn't it?" Ig retorted, "considering you're 6 inches tall and I'm almost 4 foot. Do as you are told now," Stickman commanded in a voice that had to be obeyed. So Ig, feeling frightened and a little hopeless at this pathetic gesture to protect herself, stepped behind Stickman.
Where'd they go?
asked the Cyclops, with his eyes swivelling around and around.
Disappeared,
"They have?" the bull bellowed, and the horse-like creature neighed despite his human head.
disappeared, right before my one and only eye.
The Cyclops' eye was going up and down, round and round, backwards and forwards at quick speed, yet Ig was there, right in front of him. "What's happened? Why can't he see me?" asked Ig. "Us," corrected Stickman. "Why can't he see us?" "All right, us. Why can't he see us?" "Well, I would have thought it was obvious." "You mean he's gone blind?" "Well, all 3 of them have, I suppose. Gosh, how lucky was that for us?" "Lucky? Luck has nothing to do with it. And do they look blind? They seem to be seeing everything else." Ig looked again, and yes, they did seem to see each other and their surroundings. "Oh, I can see. I'm going to have to spell it out. It's not them, it's us. I made us invisible." "Invisible? I'm invisible?" "We're invisible. It's not all about you, you know." "Gosh, but I feel the same." "Well, you are. I just surrounded us in a cloud of invisibility. And I tell you, it wasn't easy with you. You're still a bit closed to the world of infinite possibilities." "Gosh, thank you. You saved me from being attacked by an axe." "Yes, well, that's my job with students. Never lost one yet. Now, what I want you to do is play with it." "Play with it?" "Yes, go on. Tickle the Cyclops' nose. But be quiet, otherwise he'll hear you." Ig looked at the Cyclops, his size, his eye, and then his axe. No, thanks. I'm okay. I believe you. We are invisible." "Belief is not enough. People believe all sorts of lies. You have to know. You have to know and experience for yourself," replied Stickman. "Go on, catch him." Cyclops seemed to be deliberating with his friends about what to do next. Ig took one big gulp and touched his hand, quickly drawing it away, which was just as well, because immediately the Cyclops' other hand came across and slapped the hand that Ig had touched. "Blinking flies," he said. "Nobody told me there would still be flies in the universe when I was banished out here." Ig smiled and then poked his shoulder. Immediately, Cyclops' hand swung across as though he was swatting a fly. "Drat it things," he swore. Ig found she was enjoying herself as she began to poke the Cyclops in lots of places, to see him in a frenzy, slapping himself wherever she poked. "Why are they picking on me?" he said to the others, and seeing her chance, Ig started poking the other two as well. Pretty soon they were slapping and scratching, even when Ig had been nowhere near them. It was so funny that Ig had to stifle her laughs. Might be fleas," said the centaur. "I haven't had a good grooming for eons." Ig could not contain herself and burst out laughing. "Who's there?" the Minotaur shouted. Stickman called to Ig. "Time to go. The invisibility will start to wear off now." But Ig was in a state of giggles and had to be pulled up and away by Stickman, who suddenly seemed to have enormous strength. They flew up and away, leaving the three creatures far below, still looking for flies, fleas, and the owner of the giggle. "I didn't mean for you to get quite so carried away," said Stickman. "Sorry, but it was so funny. Those big creatures looking for fleas." She started to laugh again. "And what are they doing anyway, roaming around the universe like that with those huge axes?" "They are looking for war and their place in life. They were heroes and monsters, great warriors in stories of old. And the world? Well, it's moved on without them. They're stuck in an old story and unable to let go and make new. Remember, a wizard always makes new. Come, Ignatiana, it is time for me to return you to your home before your parents miss you and you start to get all Hermione again. I am beginning to feel weary too. A wizard always looks after themselves. This, too, is the law of the universe." Ig suddenly felt tired too, and wanted to curl up in her own bed, safe and warm. This wizard business, it was all well and good, but she wasn't used to flying and getting thrown off planets and being invisible and using magic fingers, and it had all been rather frightening as well as fun. "We'll go straight to the wood," said Stickman. "Hold my hand and think of the wood." In a blink of an eye, there they were, back on solid ground in the wood. No flying, no slip-away tree, just instantaneous arrival. No sooner had they arrived than Stickman lifted himself back up into the air. "Trouble ahead, directly on your path home. Sorry, can't help this time. This is your responsibility." Ig was still a little amazed at the speed at which she had arrived in the wood, and wondered what on earth Stickman was on about this time. Then she looked up from the ground on which she had landed and took a sharp intake of breath, for there, directly ahead of her, was an animal she had seen many times in storybooks, an animal she didn't really think existed. But there, in front of her, blocking her pathway home, was a large, red, fire-breathing dragon. And this time, she, Ignatiana, was all alone.
The Magic of Ig, Chapter 5. Home. Ig felt fear running through her body. Here, right in front of her, blocking the path, was a real dragon. She did the first thing her instinct told her to do: run. She turned away from the path home and ran in the opposite direction as fast as she could. It didn't matter where she was going, she just had to get away from that terrifying fire-breathing monster. So she ran, but the large red dragon followed her, crashing through the wood. Ig began to get out of breath, and all sorts of thoughts flew through her head. This was the end. The dragon would eat her. She was getting further from home and would never find her way back. What sort of friend was Stickman to leave her in this situation? How could she get away? She would never get away. She began to stumble along the path, and the dragon began to roar behind her, when something strange happened. A tree stuck its foot out. Well, it was one of its roots, actually, and it was a very deliberate action. Poor Ig tripped over it and fell to the ground. "Sorry," said the tree. "Had to be done before you hurt yourself even more." Well, thanks for nothing, thought Ig, as the huge dragon towered over her, setting fire with his breath to a bush at her side. Ig screamed, "No! No, please! Please don't set fire to me! Please!" "Oh, for goodness sake! Just blow on the bush and put the fire out," said the tree in a tone of disgust. "If Dragon was going to hurt you, he would have done so ages ago. He could have caught you in a millisecond, or flown over your head, or blown fire at you and scorched you to death immediately. But he didn't. Does he look like he wants to hurt you?" Dragon was now led at her feet, and he put out his long tongue and licked a little cut on her leg. Ig held her breath. But his tongue was surprisingly soft, and it seemed to ooze a lovely cooling gel. How was she supposed to know he wasn't going to hurt her? You saw him and just assumed he was going to hurt you. You saw the picture like the slip-away tree and filled it in with all that you thought you knew about dragons. Stickman told you, forget everything you think you know. That means don't make assumptions either. Ig was still frozen between terror and relief. "Did you speak to him?" demanded the tree. "Did you ask him anything? Do you know how many times he has had to put up with this? People running away from him, judging him as bad, when he's as gentle as anything. All he wants is to be friends, and people are scared of him before he can do or say anything. You felt fear and ran. Wizards face their fears, and more often than not find there is nothing in them, nothing to be afraid of at all. Ig couldn't take any more. She had been terrified, and now she was being given a telling off. She burst into tears, and to her astonishment, Dragon did too. The tree sighed and bent down over them, wiping their tears away with her soft green leaves. Now, that's it. Let it all go. Cry all those hurts away. Before Ig knew it, Dragon had put his wings around her, and he was gently caressing her. And strange though it was at first, she began to feel safe enough to close her eyes and eventually fall asleep, exhausted. When she awoke, it seemed to be early morning, with a fresh dew on the ground. But Ig was warm and dry, snuggled between the dragon's wings. She remembered the night before. She couldn't help it. Her first instinct was still to run. But she looked the dragon straight in the face and said, "Hello." He nodded his head, and his mouth appeared to smile. "He can't talk human talk," said the tree. "He talks in pictures in your head." Dragon smiled again. Ig felt ashamed. How could she have judged Dragon to be dangerous? It was strange how things you thought were bad could turn out to be good, and sometimes things you thought were good turned out to be bad. Good was bad, bad was good. What a topsy-turvy world. Better not to judge or label anything at all, she thought. That should be a law of the wizards. Yay! With that, the entire wood burst into life. Singing, dancing trees, humming, flying birds. Dragon got up and did a little jig, and right next to her, Stickman appeared. "Well done! Well done!" he shouted. "You are discovering the laws of magic all by yourself. You have the makings of a wizard after all. You faced your fear with the help of Tree and found there was nothing to be afraid of. You learned the dangers of labelling and judging. Celebrations are in order. You, Ignatiana, have passed the first stage of Stickman's wizardry." The whole wood, animals and trees and grass, everything in it appeared to be clapping. Fairies appeared with dewdrop champagne, and Ig thought it the most wonderful drink she had ever tasted. She laughed and danced with Dragon, and they flew together above the ground for a minute or two, just because they could. Butterflies appeared from everywhere, and Stickman whispered, "Your parents would be really proud of you." Ig put her hand over her mouth. "Oh gosh, my mum and dad, they must be really worried. I've been gone ages." But Stickman smiled and said, "Time is different here. It's magic. You've only been away an hour of their time. Don't worry." Just an hour, but so much had happened. Ig relaxed and thought what a strange and magical world she was living in. "A few surprises for you before you go home, though," announced Stickman.
a few special guests." And with that, the slip-away tree flew in with its branches of oak, sycamore, fir, willow, and many more. Ig ran to the tree, hugging it tight, and all the different branches curled around her and hugged her back. Then a swirling, whirling light appeared just above them, and a voice could be heard singing, "Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine." "Venus!" shouted Ig. "And you have a new voice on your smartphone." And Venus tilted and blew her a kiss. Next, there was a big thunderclap in the sky, and there were Minotaur, Centaur, and Cyclops. My accomplices, I'm afraid," said Stickman. "When you declare you want to be magic, life presents you with all you need." "Well, that was a surprise," said Ig. The three creatures bowed to her quite solemnly, and she bowed back, happily taking another glass of dewdrop champagne. She stole a look at Dragon and wondered why he was called Dragon instead of Dragon. "That's another story," whispered Stickman, "for another day. Now it's time for the presentation," announced Stickman. One of the trees lowered its branches to form a seat, and Stickman indicated that Ig should sit down. In his hands, Stickman held a scroll. "I do proudly proclaim that Ig has passed stage 1 of Stickman's wizardry. Our Ignatiana has started to learn for herself and find her own way of being in the world. She is discovering her own magic, the magic of Ig." Everyone clapped and cheered, and Ig clasped the certificate to her chest. She liked that, the magic of Ig. That made the whole adventure worthwhile. But this was only stage 1. "How many stages are there?" she asked Stickman. Stickman sighed and said, "After stage 3, a lifetime of them, I would say, Ig. A lifetime. You're learning quickly, though. You're definitely less Hermione than when we started." "It's Hermione," Ig said indignantly. "You even had me saying Hermione, and if anyone really moans and complains, it's you." "Ah, excellent. So what you see in other people is really in you as well. You're learning quickly now." Ig smiled. All that she knew was that Hermione would forever be Hermione in her head now. "There's a lot in a name," said Stickman, "and you have a great deal to learn about Ignatiana. Time to rest now, though, and if you choose to do the next stages, just call me. You'll know when you're ready." "Of course I want to learn more," Ig thought, "and I want to start now, this minute." But even as she thought it, she knew she was tired after the champagne and was actually missing those annoying brothers of hers, as well as her mum and dad. It was time to go home. Time to go home and play with the magic she had learnt. "Yes,
let's get you home," said Stickman, "for you have made an excellent beginning. You are now discovering what magic really is. Not tricks and sleights of hand, but true magic, the wonderful magic of Ig, the magic that is simply you." And Ig knew it to be true. She had experienced it herself. That magic, that wonderful magic of Ig.
Thank you for listening to The Magic of Ig. If you would like to show support for Jan's storytelling, please consider using the support link provided in the video description to make a contribution. If you haven't subscribed to the Strolls and Stories free YouTube channel, please consider doing so to receive notification of new stories. Jan loves to hear from her listeners, so if you would like to contact her, please leave a comment below and she will get back to you.